Vlogcast that comes from a skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of why. The Vlogcast started as a combination of spite and the Streisand effect because I'm wearing a blue hat. I'm wearing a blue hat. Fuck off.
Hey, Red, you suck. Blue rules.
Sorry.
Those of you who don't know where that's from, you rock.
I'm beginning to wonder if I should tell you what I saw in the mall a couple of weeks ago.
No, not just yet.
Let us finish this intro. Sorry.
Part of this follow through with the old dad is sometimes journey is God damn it, woman. Really? You make me self-conscious. And then the whole thing just goes, you know what? That's it. Good night, everybody. Thanks for showing up for the It's gonna be one of those nights. So yes, it's us. We're back from a week off. I'll explain about that in a couple of moments. Don't worry about it. We've got a little bit of a weird setup, and I'll explain in a couple of seconds. As usual, top left-hand corner of the bingo card of North America. Good evening, Dallin.
Good evening.
Somewhere somewhat south of there in the Midwest of the U.S. Good evening, Bridget.
Good evening.
South of me into, oh my God, somebody stole my bread. Pittsburgh, good morning, Joey.
Go pick yourself.
And just outside of, oh my God, do we really have to let him back again? Otherwise known as Washington, D.C. Good morning on Reno Tech.
You know, just because I border D.C. doesn't mean I'm actually in D.C. All right?
I know.
So,
look,
yeah,
if I can put...
Keep bringing up, it's like pulling the Band-Aid off off a cut, and then putting it back, and then pulling it off again, and then putting it back and pulling it off again. Like, can we just staple the wound shut now, please?
No, because I'm a sadist. Screw you. Yeah, Joe.
All I can say to Tech on that subject is if I can go ahead and stick Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on my as my address and still get my mail, you're screwed.
You're welcome.
You're in DC.
You know what? I got 2 words for you. Plumber's kill.
We'll try not to explain that to everybody later. So let me really quickly explain what happened last week. As you guys know full well, I was in Pittsburgh for Anthrocon, and I gave Joey a little bit of time for dinner, which was kitschy. I think it's probably the right word for it. Yeah, kitschy.
I suppose that's reasonable.
Oh, was that the place you were talking about last night?
Yes. Bocce de booba de boop. I don't know. Hibbity bobbity boop. So those of you that remember that, you're old.
Boopy?
Bibbidi boppity boo. That's
the one. And put it together. What have you got? You've got dinner. Oh my God. Book it about. Yeah. So anyway. So last weekend,
not for the faint of stomach.
No. And funny enough, right, a couple of doors down from that was Texas de Brazil. So
and Hard Rock Cafe and Joe's Crab Shack and
so you guys were down Riverside. Okay, I know the locale, just not quite the place you're talking about. But yeah,
well, that particular region of Pittsburgh proper is referred to as Station Square.
Yes, been there many a time. Met the human selfie stick there.
Yes, very, very nice part of town, actually.
Yeah, I love it at night because you get the retro music with that fountain going there at night. That is totally awesome.
Very much, and so yeah, we got the chance to of having dinner because I wanted to go. I've been wanting to go to Buca Beppo again since years gone by. There was a place up over here in Buffalo that had since closed. And when I mentioned it to one of the guys over there in Pittsburgh, I mentioned about it and he named the proper town name and pronounced it correctly. So I was just like, okay, this guy either worked there, lived up there, or was really paying attention to the company memos about where all of the places used to be. So whoever you were, dude, well done. But yeah, so short version, what ended up happening last week was comedy of errors is basically what ended up happening. So show did not happen last week. You did not miss out on it. I did not miss out on it. And I don't have to come back and say, how much did you break my show? So, we're all good. We're all good. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And I mean, let's face it, a week off every once in a while, it happens. And I mean, really, you're getting what you pay for. So, it's whatever it is. Anyway, so as always, thank you guys for hanging out with us. Yes, I'm kind of working with the contacts and the glasses at the same time. I'm not feeling real comfortable right now with the contacts. It's a little weird on me. Anyway, for those of you that are watching, of course, live, thank you. Please take advantage of the live chat somewhere on your screen. I don't know. I don't care where it is. If you know where it is, thank you. So at the moment, Stephanie and Felis, thank you, guys. Nice to have you. And if you want to chime in, by all means, feel free at any time. You can go ahead and let us know what you're thinking. We do pay good, close attention to all that because I don't know, because vanity, I guess. I can't think of anything else. I mean, well, we could, individual ones of us get asked stuff once in a while. Vanity is good motivation. I swear to you, this is Tang. There's no alcohol involved. Motivation. God, it's gonna be one of those nights, man.
It's okay, Shu. We believe you.
You do, and thank you. Oh, and Trippin, I did see over there. Thank you. Drinky Poo is good. See, this is like real Drinky Poo as opposed to Match Game PM Drinky Poo. Those of you that know what I'm talking about know full well. Yeah, vodka looks a lot like water on camera, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It yeah, it does. So anyway.
Golden age.
Yes, it is. So let me go ahead and get everything rolling over here because we got stuff to talk about that is not exactly philosophy and definitely not atheism. It's much more a matter of sociology for a change.
But
it
the
was
good
one of
kind.
those things.
Yeah, but the good kind, folks. Let's be clear.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what to talk about, and this kind of fell into my lap. Yeah, I think I may be kind of rehashing old ground, but whatever. Doesn't really much matter. So let me get you guys rolling over here. So with 5 minutes on the clock, your 5-minute freestyle starts now. It's titled "Weird Like Me." Yeah, there's an expression, family of choice. Wow, man, ain't that the truth? When I originally went down to Pittsburgh for Anthrocon, which was 2007, I've told this story many a time. I was told to go down. I was not requested. I was told. It was 2 years after my wife had died, and a buddy of mine told me, get Tiny Tribble somewhere and come down for a weekend. It's okay. At the time, it was 5,000 close, warm, personal friends that I had never known that I just didn't know yet. And now it's over 8,000, which is a sizable number. Don't get me wrong. It's kind of cool. It's a little overwhelming at times to think about the number of people that I know. And I don't, by any stretch of the imagination, I do not believe for an instant that I know all 8,000 people going to Anthrocon. I mean, that's absolutely insane. I don't know the 15-ish hundred people going to, 17. There's a little over 1,700 people going to Fernal Equinox in Toronto. I don't know them all. And I don't expect that I ever would. But I know some of them. I know artists. I know security. I know people in charge of running the con. In the case of Fernal Equinox, they've basically made me quote unquote staff. And the only reason why they gave me that title is because I have been helping and volunteering my time so much that I earn enough to go back, and have my ticket paid for. not the hotel bill, but the ticket. So that's always good. But these are weirdos like me, people who enjoy whatever fringe item it is, the creative stuff. And remember, there are freaks, weirdos like me in a lot of different respects. I mean, I've gone to science fiction conventions where Star Trek, of course, was the big draw because, I mean, Star Trek. I've been to a wine tasting where, well, it was, it's about wine. I've been to 2 different FurCons. And it helped me in ways that I can't begin to describe. Part of it is social, admittedly. Part of it is emotional. But a good portion of it is just understanding that just because I have this hole in my soul, not that I believe I have a soul, but you get the idea, that I have people that willingly would call me family of choice. And I don't begin to remember who they all are. I'm never going to remember them all. But this past weekend, I was proud enough to be able to say that I spent a really good amount of time with some really good people. As Joey will vouch, I almost spent Saturday morning with 60 people. Almost. Or at least that's what it was looking like. Fortunately, it wasn't. But only because there were a lot of people that were really interested in what I was doing. And even though it was roughly a dozen that showed up, it didn't change the fact that I was very proud to think that maybe there's a bunch of people that are weird like me, that wanted to spend Saturday morning hurting from walking around, tired as all hell because didn't get enough sleep, and just happy to be together, to spend morning doing nothing other than just being weird together. This is a little piece of what I would like to call the family of choice. Do I recognize each and every one of them and remember who all of their names are? No. But when it comes down to it, is it really going to matter? We have family out there. And I'm very proud to say that they're part of mine. It's episode 218 on the docket, Your Honor. Not real friends. I know full well that I'm probably going over stuff that we've probably talked about before, at least alluded to at times before. But, after getting together with folks, family of choice, friends that we don't get to see but once a year, it seemed worthwhile to kind of go back through the idea of your friends, even if they are long distance, even if they are on the internet just because they're on the internet and they're just recycled photons, that what you feel for everybody that you encounter is real feelings. And some people who poo-poo the whole thing and say that internet friends aren't real friends. Yeah, they've kind of forgotten that once upon a time there used to be pen pals and playing chess by mail. Mm-hmm. The only difference is now the ping times are a lot shorter.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to necessarily use a stamp the way that you used to, but we're going to go through a lot of that because, feelings freaking matter. Normally about this point, I'd have Heretic Woman chiming in with me. But being that she's probably watching Gentleman Fry talk to her, bitch, that's fine. You know what? He's old and decrepit and washed up. You should really be with us, the youngsters in the group. But you know what? Whatever, it's fine. He's nothing without Lori. You know that. So with that, I don't have any news at the moment on Rafe Badawi. I didn't get the opportunity of really checking because there are reasons. However, I also don't have new information that is suddenly plastered all over the place like he's been set free, which would get through pretty much everything. So to that end, as of the recording of tonight's show, it is now 6 years, 28 days since Rafe Badawi was unjustly incarcerated for thought crime. Our hopes and our thoughts are still with you and your family. We're still waiting. So, I'm sorry. I was just really quick trying to catch up on the stuff over here, and Trippin's trying to have a little fun at my expense. Would it be electrons, since we get to hear, see, read them by electric? And dives behind the couch. Trippin? No. That would be a transducer causing vibrations. You know what transducers causing vibrations are good for, right? Good on you. That's good. I can get away with that one. That's scientific terminology. That's as far as I'm going with that before I start getting cease and desist letters from anybody. So, yeah. So, I had also made reference in the show notes to a TV show called Big Blue Marble. Am I the only one that remembers that, or does anybody else? Does that like ring a bell to anybody else?
Sorry.
Well, I'm staying awake purely based on caffeine right now, so it doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, it's fine.
It sounds like something I would have watched growing up as a kid, though. Because I liked a lot of the sciencey stuff, the stuff about the planet, and the stuff about how things work, stuff about stars. So if it was something based on that, it was probably something I saw.
It would have been. Yep. Big Blue Marble was a thing back in the 70s. And the idea, well, let me read let me read the lyrics to the opening song and maybe kind of get an idea for it. Reminding you that this was the mid 70s. The Earth's the Earth's a big blue marble when you see it from out there. Closer, getting closer. Perspectives start to change. Things look a little strange as we get closer. Closer, growing closer. No need to be afraid. Our troubles start to fade as we get closer. Together is a word we must learn to understand if we ever want to get to know each other better. Together is a word that holds tomorrow in its hand. Tomorrow's just another day to get together and get closer. Get closer. The idea was that every week there would be a new group that would be, well, I guess you could say highlighted. You'd learn a little bit more about the culture, a little bit about the language, about where they live, how they're different from everybody else that's out there on the planet. Because, yeah, every culture has its unique properties, but ultimately the message was, we're all still human. We all still laugh. We all still play music. We learn. We eat. We grow. We die. But ultimately, we're all on spaceship Earth, man. There's not much that you can do about it. And if we want to continue to live and grow as a species, we need to be willing to embrace the knowledge of who we all are, culturally as well as personally. And I think that was one of those things that in the 70s was the shining star societally. Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff was, look at how different everybody is compared to us here in the United States. I mean, it was made for a U.S. audience, basically. But I mean, that was something worthwhile to me. I really enjoyed the hell out of that because as a kid, I got to learn about everywhere and everyone to a degree without needing to necessarily leave home.
Or even visiting a library.
True, but then again, there's only
It's-
so much that you can learn in the library from just the books themselves.
No, what I meant is that being a television program, you could do it from the comfort of your own home without even having to trek over to the library. Shows like this, shows like Big Blue Marble, allowed you to see things, what was going on around you. What was that? Not Animal Planet. National Geographic and other such programs allowed you to see different things going on in the world without having to actually leave the privacy and comfort of your own home. And that the more of these came about, the more we could actually, as we were growing up and watching these things, feel more connected with the world around us. Now we're so interconnected, it's like it's overkill to a point where you actually have to learn to set up your own filters now.
Yeah, there is that to a certain degree. Joe, was there something you were going to say?
Well, you had mentioned the whole pen pal thing.
Yep. And there's more to go along with that too. Yes.
I don't know how many of you were. Well, I'm pretty sure none of you were, but for our listeners out there, I don't know how many of you would have been in the K through 12 period of your life in the 80s and late 80s, early 90s, but you might remember something called the Sister City program. I assume that's what it was called. That's what we called it at my school. But, the idea being that you would have some foreign city that your township had some connection with. And generally speaking, the schools would organize like pen pal things between students from the different cities. We had two of them. One was in Australia. I don't remember what the city was. Likewise, I don't remember which one it was, but we also had one in Japan. And I do remember, every week we write letters back and forth. My pen pals were Oshi and Tyler.
Yep. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, no, we didn't have that where I was growing up in New York. They had us instead writing to local government officials to tell them about the things that we felt were important to us, even though that we weren't old enough to vote. Our teachers felt it was important that the children should be heard by their public officials, and I remember that for some of the ones that I wrote, I actually got a lot more responses back because I'd think about what I felt was important and then lay it out on paper, and saying what I felt was important. Whereas a lot of the other kids wrote things like, "How are you?" and "What's it like?" and just, the simple stuff that a lot of children would ask. And I'd be thinking about, well, how's, my buddy up the street, he's in a bad way, and they've got bad pipes, from the last whatever, so I'd write about things like that, and I'd actually get some interesting responses. And I even met one of them at a hockey game. He was sitting, the guy was just local representative, forget his name. I was never good with names anyway. And he was sitting 2 rows in front of me. And my dad had recognized him because my dad and mom actually pay attention to politics and politicians, their faces, their names, all that, and are good with it. And my dad said, "Didn't you write to a Mr. So-and-so?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "He's right there. Why don't you go say hi?" Which surprised the heck out of that guy. He's like, "Oh, you're one of the guys that writes me." Okay.
Yeah. We had we didn't have sister cities where where I went to school, but we did have a pen pal program. I ended up exchanging letters with, let's see, there was somebody from England, somebody from New York. Yeah, she was, I think she was my first encounter with somebody who was a bit of a, I guess these days, well, back then, I guess we would have considered them a remnant of the flower child generation. She'd written me, then I wrote her, and then she sends back a letter with a whole bunch of posters, you know, in one of those little cardboard tubes, and it was a bunch of anti-smoking propaganda. Because what she found out, like, I guess the paper that I'd sent her had the smell of tobacco on it because my dad was a smoker. Mm-hmm. And she decided to get all, you know, high and mighty in my face. And even back then, I was just like, bitch, I don't think so. But then I also ended up writing a guy in the Philippines. Sadly, there were no ever, I mean, it lasted one or two times, but it just kind of petered out after that. But, you know, I still get it. There was, there were definitely efforts to make connections, you know, in those days.
Yeah. Bridget, I know I didn't hear you muttering or anything yet, but I didn't want to just all of a sudden just jump in there and not give you the chance. I mean, you are still one of the younger ones.
Yeah. Sort of.
I'm going with that. I'm trying to be nice. You know, you try to be nice to people. They don't care. They don't care. Anyway,
Yeah.
Was there something that you wanted to?
No, I mean, this doesn't have really anything to do with pen pals per se. But
That's okay.
I ended up making a lot of friends when I got older through Usenet. If anybody remembers that.
I remember that.
Oh yeah, and funny enough, I'm gonna hit that in a second. As a matter of fact,
I met a lot of friends on internet relay chat service across the world.
Oh, IRC was just invaluable, especially when I was in labor with my daughter. That helped me get through labor without killing people.
I was one of those elitist assholes. I used Perch instead of Merc.
oh, there you go.
Yeah. See, when I was in university, bulletin boards were the big thing, the BBS services. Mm-hmm. You know, where you tie up your phone line with one person. And I remember there used to be a client, like you could subscribe to message threads on these BBSs. Mm-hmm. And I think within the year that I was really like heavy into them, I found a service, I think it was called Blue Wave. And what it allowed you to do is you could download all the messages from your subscribed threads into a file that you could open offline on your computer, answer the messages you wanted, put in your own taglines, because that was the big thing. You know, everybody's trying to be witty. Mm-hmm. I still think my favorite one was, no, Toto, don't cross the street. Watch out for the no terrier. Just let that one sink in.
I got it.
But then the next time you go onto that forum, you could upload your messages, download your new ones, and just keep going. And that way you're not tying up your phone line for hours and hours at a time. I met, well, when I was at university in Saskatoon, I met a lot of people. Even had the chance to do some face-to-face with them after a while. Kind of interesting group of people. I think that's where I finally realized that, you know, the people that do spend all that time in front of their computer, the phrase, yeah, I know, but so am I. But the phrase "not quite normal" started coming into my head because I met some pretty interesting specimens of the spectrum of humanity. To just leave it at that.
Yeah, funny enough, what was just being brought up as far as to BBSs predates a lot of the stuff that we otherwise think of as the quote-unquote modern internet age. And as a matter of fact, on Facebook, I got in touch with a buddy of mine that once upon a time in the late 80s had his own BBS that he had set up with a phone line and everything. I think the statute of limitations is expired on some of the stuff that I might mention about. But anyway, he ran two different versions of software. One was called After Images, and another one was called Iron Fortress. And one of the things that he told me about it back in the day, which was amazing, because these were 300 baud modems using ANSI graphics on the screen for yourself, for those of you that remember how this works. What was fascinating to me was it was set up so that at the end of the day, you know, like at night when phone costs went down, kids ask your parents about that after 9 o'clock dialing.
Not just for home phones, cell phones too. Eventually, when they first came out,
late 80s cell phone. What? Right, exactly. The only thing that was available was a bag phone and a brick phone that was about the size of my mug. Right about it.
I'm talking about when they got a little bit smaller. They did have plans where if you dialed after certain hours, you got discounts.
Well, yeah, true, but damn it, I just realized. Yeah, the old Motorola brick phones were about the size of this. Wow,
dude, I got my old AT&T one in my sock drawer. So I mean, it looks like it's, if you fold it open, it looks like it's a chair designed for a midget.
What you've got in your sock drawer, I really don't want to know. The deal of it was that
sorry,
at night. Yes, Joe.
I believe we have to go ahead and say a little thing about, you know, we prefer the term little people.
Oh, it's just a wee little person.
We'll go with that. Anyway, the point of it was at like some stupid dark morning hour, his phone line, his BBS would automatically dial into another computer, and I vaguely remember this part. I asked him about it. I don't think I asked this part, but it was a very rudimentary networking system whereby the messages on his computer, which I think was like an Atari ST or whatever the hell it was, would dial. No, he was running off of a Commie 64, if I remember right. Oh, hell. Anyway, would dial into whoever's, wherever the hell it was, and they would exchange messages over there so that locally he would have whatever's newest stuff for another day. And that's the way that it worked. Now, reminding you, this was consumer grade. This was kids doing a lot of this stuff, and some really, really smart programming that went along with it too.
Oh, I had a friend in college, like, okay, a bit of my history. University didn't quite work out for me, so that's when I came west to Calgary after realizing a 4-year mistake. But I met another BBS proprietor out here, and he was a bit of what you'd call a technophile. He would collect parts from, like, if he had a friend who was getting rid of a computer, he'd actually take it off his hands, maybe trade a few bucks for it. And he would rebuild these things so that his BBS actually was being hosted on I think by the last time I saw him, it was running on a 4 or 5 server farm. Now, granted, like you said, these servers were definitely consumer grade, but you know, this was maybe a year after the first web browser popped into existence, the original, like, Mosaic version 1.0, which a buddy of mine actually sent me and said, "Hey, check this out. I hear the internet's going this way." And my first thought was, yeah, right. But what's this going to do? A few years later,
if only you realized.
Oh yeah, if only I'd known. Although I think I was actually the first person in my class to do any kind of decent HTML back in the day, but another story entirely. Yeah, like, just the amount of work he put into it. He actually got he got pissed off at me because I was trying to hook into his network with a slow modem. The first time he breaks into the chat and he says, you might want to think about increasing your modem speed. I'm like, well, why is that? He says, well, you're kind of tying up my phone line. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
But the thing is, back then, like I was running a 2400 baud, which was like standard, 2 years before that. In the 14.4, 14.4 kilobits or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
That was some kind of pinnacle. And even then, going into a computer store to find that modem and looking at the prices.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly, short of a video card, I don't think there's a peripheral device you can buy for a computer nowadays that would cost as much as those things did. I remember having to save up for like 2 months to get that modem, and then finding out that it was external, so it was going in through my serial port. It turns out the serial port I had was a piece of crap. The whole UART thing wasn't set properly, or was actually too slow. And then, thus began my journey into the world of messing around with computer hardware. And I've never looked back.
Yeah. Now, there's something else that was also mentioned.
Party lines.
Well, party lines
yeah.
was something that was mentioned also. But who was that? Felis had also put up another piece over here, which I was also going to hit. The CB radio craze, actually the double craze, because you had the first hit in the 70s. Because, Smokey and the Bandit. Come on. And then come the mid 80s, it kind of flashed up again. And that was something that I did. Matter of fact, I still have over in the corner over there, my originally bought remember how I said statute of limitations? Some people will understand this. Some people are going to go, it's just gobbledygook. A Cobra 148 GTL, completely unlocked and spec'd up. It is a completely illegal radio at this point to use, because it's had the transmitter and receiver completely opened up into areas that kind of go into the ham radio bands, and the power has been increased that it's really not supposed to do. So, truth be told, I have not used it in decades. Honest truth. But I've still got it because, what am I going to do with it? But the CB craze is, another one of those things where some guys would gather into social circles because, they liked it, they had fun with it, they talked, they pissed each other off, whatever. There were minor amounts of I don't know what the right terminology would be for it, but there are minor amounts of naughty that you could get away with. For instance, if you had, not that I'm saying anybody would do this, mind you, but if you had somebody that had a CB like this one with a power amplifier to run it from, let's say, 10 watts that it's not supposed to do up to an output of 300 watts that it's not supposed to do, something like that. Hypothetically speaking, because I don't know anybody that was able to have something like that. And you just dead clicked the transmitter and drove at a stately 20 miles an hour down through the row of houses and see which of the garage doors started to open because they got overloaded. Yeah. We would never do that on Long Island. Absolutely never. Absolutely never. Like I said, statute of limitations, man. Screw you.
Yeah. Or like phone phreaking, where somebody would bust into like a telephone switch box and place long distance calls to their friends, but it would be billed to somebody else's number. So suddenly the friend, somebody gets a $300 phone bill from the phone company and saying, well, did you call this number in the States? Like, no, I don't know anybody there. I knew guys that used to do that. And I will swear on a stack, I never saw them do it. I only heard about it afterwards.
Yeah. How long has it been since 1986? Roughly? Because I'm pretty sure statute of limitations on freaking is over from
32
then.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I may know somebody that could possibly have downloaded lists of MCI account numbers and used, maybe.
Yeah, but in any case, like, no, it is kind of amazing that all that time ago, stuff like that was able to be done. We look at it now and everything's such a convenience. I mean, you can spoof a number by just a couple of mouse clicks online. I actually do it all the time for work, legally. Let me get that out there, legally. So that the number, somebody might get a call on their phone, but when they look at the caller ID, the number it's showing is not the number that's actually calling them. It's a customer thing that I deal with, but just to know that, it's come so far so fast.
Yep. And there's also another piece that Felix had also popped in over here. And it's a term, it's not a technical term. It's a cultural term for the people that were playing around with CB radios. And the term is running skip.
Okay.
Now, spoilers, for those of you that don't want the technical aspect, fast forward about 20 seconds. The ionosphere of the planet, which is energized from the sun, is effectively a mirror to certain wavelengths of electromagnetic radio waves. So, with some times of the day, your CB radio, which is just a radio signal, could literally bounce off of the ionosphere and come down at a different place on the planet. Depending as to how things are going, it could be closer, it could be further away, it could be a couple of hops over, but this is a naturally occurring phenomena, and you can experience this one for yourself if you go out at night, or as you're starting to get into night, in your car, turn on the AM radio and start tooling around until you hear a station that's not in where you would expect it should be, and you hear it kind of wavering in and out and in and out. And you will find out that you will be picking up a radio station from 300 miles, 500 miles, 1,500 miles away that otherwise you shouldn't be able to hear. That's the same kind of thing. Now, for CB radio in the United States, it's illegal to intentionally do that. Before anybody gives me shit about this, I know about this because of the ham radio stuff I had to learn about. It is illegal to do that with a CB radio intentionally. You're only supposed to be talking within about roughly a 10-mile area. Roughly. But, we know full well that we were able to do it anyway. And like I said, this is the thing that ham radio guys have done for, years. You use this very same thing to talk around the planet, and you never know who you're going to talk to. There were times where guys on the ham radio bands would end up talking to Barry freaking Goldwater. That Barry Goldwater, the politician, because he would just get on the radio and just talk to guys every once in a while and just get on and make contacts, and cool. You can kind of do the same thing, well, a similar thing with the International Space Station when they're, in their downtime, which, by the way, is freaking cool as hell.
Yeah, they actually put the information out there to make it easy for people who want to do that.
Oh yeah.
The fact that a government agency actually encourages that out of people is awesome. It's like, look, here's something cool that you can do. You can do it with your kids. You can talk to people who are no longer on the planet and get reports of their direct observations directly from them just by following these simple steps.
Yep.
That's freaking cool.
Yes. And by the way, Trippin is also saying, seen a program where the feds would bounce signals off of craters on the moon. I got news for you. That's something that the ham radio community does on a regular basis.
Oh yeah. I knew a ham radio operator. He said something about sunspots too.
Yep.
That on certain nights with the sun, if there was a sunspot facing the planet, you'd actually be able to talk across the world or something like that.
Yep, exactly right. Because those sunspots send out more stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if that stuff ionizes the upper atmosphere again, the ionosphere more, that reflection gets stronger. So you can talk on a whole bunch of different frequencies. And two items, and I'll get to you, Tech. Item 1, meteor scatter does the same kind of thing. If a meteor comes through the atmosphere, it ionizes really, really nasty. And the guys who talk on what's called 6 meters, the 55 megahertz band, give or take, they will use beam antennas and triangulate and figure out where it is by bouncing off of that streak and coming down on the other side to talk to people, and they will triangulate on a map to figure out where all this was. And the moon thing, that's typically in the ham radio circles referred to as moon bounce, or the more fun term, EME, Earth, Moon, Earth. And by the way, trying to do voice communications by EME is the spookiest shit you can hear, because it sounds almost like ghosts, because it's not a smooth surface. It's like trying to, if you were to take a record and blow it up really, really big and try to look at yourself in the grooves because it's shiny, it's like a funhouse mirror that's constantly warping the entire time. Sorry, Tech. Now, by all means.
Oh no, you're fine. I was only going to point out 2 piddly little things. Is that one, thanks to the way NASA releases information, you can actually learn about when projected sunspots are supposed to occur, which ones are currently occurring, and their projected length of time. So you can actually, you have all this available information. You can actually calculate this to enhance your experience. And then 2, don't forget, for anybody that's doing ham radio stuff, some of that stuff is escaping the atmosphere, and eventually some other civilization may pick it up, just like it picks up our television signals, radio, and all the other fun stuff. So, you might end up being immortalized in, by some other species, other race. So be careful what you talk about.
Yep.
They may not want to know what you're doing with your drawer blocks.
Actually, this place I used to live a few years ago, my next door neighbor had he was a ham radio operator, and he had an antenna on the side of his house, a very long antenna. And I talked to him about it because some people were saying, well, it was a housing co-op. I was on the board, and people were saying that it was an eyesore. But the people who were saying it was an eyesore were assholes. Just, these attention-seeking wannabe soccer moms who have nothing better to do all day than to watch Jerry Springer and complain about the world around them because reasons.
Yeah,
basically another homeowners association with people who didn't have anything better to do.
Yeah, but the thing is, the biggest thing is that I had the authority, they didn't. So
lucky you.
Well, and I was also the kind of person that, and this is before I considered myself a critical thinker. I wanted to seek out what was going on with these accusations. So I actually went and talked to the guy, like face to face. Even as chairman of the board, I wanted to know. So he explained he was a ham radio operator, and I knew you were at the time, Shujin. So he explained to me a bit about the antenna, and I just remember looking, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that thing's tall. And some of the complaints were A, it was an eyesore, B, and it was interfering with some local phone lines, which, I mean, our phone company had gone out and run the inspection, and they couldn't find anything. So they think the phone thing was a ruse to, you know, it's an eyesore. But my point, we got to talking about some of the other, he actually had another piece of equipment in his house that he couldn't set up. It was another antenna, a bigger one. And it was one that looked like the old classic TV antennas that go on top of houses. You know, it's up, and then it's got like the cross pieces. You know, like the classic when you used to get stuff over the air and not by satellite dish.
No, I know what you're talking about. It kind of looks like almost like it's a how do I best almost like it's a triangle.
Yeah. Well,
direction.
I couldn't tell you because I never saw it set up.
Okay.
And I asked him about it. Like, well, why don't you use that one? Apparently, like, we lived very close to the airport.
Mm-hmm.
So close that if he actually did set it up, it would interfere with communications at the airport. It was that powerful. And actually I did find out about 2 months later, he actually admitted to me. He said, I had another look at the antenna. There was a crack in the casing, and it was causing signal bleed, which was actually interfering with things around the place because so much power was being pumped through it. So sadly, he had to take it down. It really sucked because he was, no, I don't think duct tape would have helped.
No,
Crazy glue couldn't have helped his situation.
No.
But, and this actually ties in a bit to the show tonight, is that he lost an outlet that he'd gotten used to communicate with people, whether or not they were face to face or whatever. He lost that connection, and he was not a very, I actually watched his mood change over the year or two that I was left there.
Well, why didn't you just get the antenna fixed?
It's not exactly what you call cheap, and we weren't exactly living in the Ritz. He was on disability. Gotcha. And I know how much people get on disability versus what the rent was there.
And he didn't have any smaller antennas, did he?
No, nothing that would give. I think he was able to do something where he could listen, he could receive, but couldn't transmit. But still, it's kind of like you go from a telephone to a radio. You know, you can listen, but you can't offer anything to the conversation. You're
no
stuck.
longer a participant in.
Yeah, you're nothing more than a spectator. And you know, I mean, we've all gone without internet before. A lot of us here are old enough to remember what life was like before the internet.
Yeah, me too.
You know, and you know, guys like, you know, people my age, we scoff at people who constantly have their face in their cell phones or their tablets, you know, needing to check Facebook, needing to like check social media. But the thing is, you know, we're suffering from the addiction as well. And I think, like, imagine revoking a kid's cell phone privileges for a month. Suddenly they can't get online. They can't communicate with their friends, as it were. That's got to be devastating now that I think about it. I'm glad that I mean, yes, I lament the fact that I don't have kids, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad that that's a situation I don't have to deal with.
You know, there was a, oh, sorry, go ahead, Bridget.
I was just chuckling at that. My daughter, when she was in high school, I grounded her and took her power cords, I took her phone, took everything. I thought she was going to die. But anyway, I'm done.
So there was an article about a man who decided that he was going to make his house like the 1980s. And what he ended up doing was When people were outside the house, they could use their cell phones, they could access the internet, laptops, all that fun stuff. As soon as they walk in the door, they had to put all of their electronics in a basket. He even went out. His house ended up having a rotary phone. He had a VCR, an old-fashioned television, antennas, the whole works. And after doing that for a while, what the results were was the fact that the kids, after finally getting accommodated to the whole mess, ended up actually started to improve their grades because you'd think, oh well, they don't have access to the internet, everything else. Well, what they did is the father had bought a giant set for encyclopedia, right? Just like a lot of us had growing up. So they had reference material. If they needed something beyond that, they could go outside the home and go to the library, and they could either use the laptop or the books or things like that. So he didn't cut them off completely from the world. So they ended up spending more time focused on their studies rather than Facebook or Twitter or whatnot. The family ended up spending more time together for dinner, doing movies in front of the television together as a family, talking to each other. So it's not actually truly harmful in the sense that it would make somebody, die, but because this is an environment where it's a family together doing the whole mess, not just a punishment towards one person being out where everybody else isn't.
Yeah.
And I also don't scoff at people who have their heads in their phones, depending on the situation, mind you, because I remember seeing people on the buses with their noses in newspapers and in books. Here you are. You could be talking to your neighbor. Nope, reading the paper. Nope. People had the paper folded up to the, in a portable style to their favorite section, and they'd be walking and reading the paper. There was the occasional person who walked into a telephone pole while reading the paper. It didn't just happen on cell phones.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. It's, I guess, really
we're seeing it through a different lens as we get older.
Yeah.
Which means get off my lawn.
Yeah. The addiction is there, has always been there. Just the medium has changed.
Right. And the medium, I will admit, is flashier. It's more up to date. There's more content, more things to pick from. Whereas a newspaper, you're completely limited by the amount of printable space and the font type, font size, and whether or not there's graphics on the page. Whereas with the internet,
why don't you just put a sock in it? Fine, movable type, colored graphics for the comics. Yeah. Oh my God, you poor sod. Really?
Right. But the point is that like Dallin said, yeah, the desire, the addiction has always been there. We just have a better drug than we did before. And with my son, as an example, he's a big fan of Pokemon Go. I play with him. We do other things as well. And I, being the dutiful parent that I am, I let him play, but I make sure, we're coming to a crosswalk, or, we're coming to a sidewalk that's a little bit thinner than the other, or it's turning so the curb's up ahead, or we're going to be crossing the street and there is no available sidewalk at any location. That phone screen's off. It's in his pocket. He's paying attention, because some of the sections of where I live around here, the people don't care if you're a kid and an adult, or if you're even on a crosswalk. They just go. I mean, it sucks, but it's the reality of the situation. Yeah. And he's getting a lot better at it.
Good.
And I couldn't be more proud of him for being, making the effort, where so many other kids are just kind of, completely oblivious, and adults too. Don't let me forget. Around here, I see more adult drivers staring at their cell phones while driving than the kids who just got their licenses.
Yeah. I don't know. I did a presentation in college my last year, and I actually called Turn It Off. And it was a presentation about the influence computers and, well, technology in general and the internet were having on that generation of kids. Now, keep in mind, this was back in 96. So we're going back a few years here. But like I read an article about a computer camp that was going on in Toronto every summer. Basically, the U of T would open its doors to kids, and for a month out of the summer, they could come in and they would, supposedly learn how to use computers, or, learn to not so much program, but like how to do like, formatting and stuff. And so the guy who wrote the article, he came into this camp and he asked the children to, on their computers, to write for him what they thought the ideal computer would be. And so they all set to work, and the stuff he got back from the printer was, well, some of it was formatted beautifully, like the presentation style was awesome. But you know what they say about the package of shit wrapped in golden foil? It's still a package of shit,
Yeah.
So while everything looked great and flowery, apparently the content absolutely blew chunks. Like I am talking to the point where my high school English teacher probably would have had a stroke at that point. I mean, and she could get apoplectic when if you messed up. Then she had the voice. Oh dear God, she had the voice. Great lady. Just whatever you do, don't get on her bad side. But after reading that, I realized that as technology becomes more and more prevalent in our society, and I'm repeating what a lot of people have said, it becomes recognized less as a tool and more as an extension of who we are. And I think that's where we are these days. And circling back, I could, poo-poo this more and say, well, it's just a computer. It's just the internet. Shujin, Joey, I met you two face to face for the first time 8 years ago because of this very kind of technology. I knew you guys as nothing more than voices on a show that I was invited to come on 8 years ago when I was at a admittedly pretty low frickin' point in my life, just having been divorced. But that got me out to Pittsburgh that year. That got me out to actually meet you guys face to face, to shake Shujin's hand, to punch Joey in the head, among other things.
No, he was asked to do so.
Yes, true story. I was asked to do so because the other person we were with at the time just couldn't. He couldn't do it. But anyway, beside that, I've made lots of friends on the net. I've had one very serious relationship that started on the net and eventually transitioned to real life. And now I'm possibly having another. We'll find out in September. But yeah, I like I said, I could shit on this medium and tell people that you don't go out and get a life, but I'm probably the last person that can tell you that, because I probably have more friends online now, like actual friends, than I do in meat space. And I do consider them real friends, because I will say this more. I think it's because I've actually had vocal conversations with most of them. I think that to me, I think is more of a requirement. Like, yes, you can text type back and forth or whatever. But I think if you actually, go from a chat client to, say, Skype, Discord, TeamSpeak, whatever, where you actually make that connection, even if it's over voice for a little bit, I think that actually helps cement. I think that helps cement the relationship.
Yeah, it's a matter of going from dealing with a Turing test to an actual personality. For those of you that get that reference, and
Bingo.
by the way, joining us this morning, and little bit, I was a little surprised that you were able to make it, but glad you were able to. From Paris, France. Good morning, Joseph.
Good morning, sir.
You doing okay over there?
Yeah, why did you guys start so early?
Because we started on time.
Don't call him sir, damn it.
It's not my fault. I'm trying to be nice to the guy. I mean, he just woke up.
I'm not talking to you.
Oh.
What should I call him?
All right, so we're going to continue on while I mute his microphone.
Lord and Savior.
I know better than that.
I'll
But
mute myself.
you do that. But here's why we spent so much time on all of these different pieces. That was the bunny trail that we just went through to really get to this. We know full well, we've heard it time and time again, humans are social animals. There's no two ways about it. It's almost impossible to get away from that fact. And the idea that anybody would say that just because you're typing to somebody who could be literally an avatar of any kind or not, as the case may be online, that having a personal repartee with these people just because they're a text name on a screen doesn't make it any less impactful for our feelings. Now, by the way, since IRC was one of the things that was mentioned earlier, and I know that I'll get a little bit of a backup on this one, Bridget, I know, Fo, you're going to laugh at this. Second Life has basically been described as IRC on acid because you get to see all of the people, whether you wanted to or not, in some form or other. Some
interesting forms.
Yes. Most assuredly, yes. When you can
that pokes people. Okay, interesting.
If people want to have some kind of ideas to what could people actually have avatars of,
swap anything.
anything, literally anything.
To give people an idea, I wanted to go into Second Life and visit the Wednesday night 80s bash for what's the group called again? The Feline Conspiracy, right?
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I didn't want to show up in a human avatar. I wanted to show up in something. I didn't know what to show up in. So I figured, well, everybody does from what I've seen. I can't say everybody. From what I've seen, people tend to pick furry little animals, big furry animals, whatever. I was like, I know. So I found me an avatar of a rhinoceros, and I found clothes for him that basically was a zoot suit, complete with fedora and Tommy gun.
Nice.
I showed up. I stuck out like a sore thumb. And I got to see Sujin rocking the little DJ thing. And it was interesting. I mean, I still listen to the show. I have no desire to go back into Second Life or anything like that. And I my account still got the Rhino and everything else. But, it shows you that you can pretty much do whatever the heck you want.
And truth be told, a rhino in Second Life, that's tame and unimaginative. Trust me, after some of the stuff that I've seen,
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Tame, I have no. Okay, tame, yes.
A rhinoceros mobster with complete with Tommy gun and
but
fedora.
I would not call it unimaginative, and I would also call it very uncommon.
Okay,
because
fair enough.
Like, you got to admit, a lot of the stuff that's out there that is like you said, like, we've all seen some shit. The trouble is, we've seen so much of it that it's almost becoming tropey these days.
Yeah, I used to frequent the random section of 4chan. I have seen some shit.
Yeah.
Look,
I'd like to think that at least when my rhino showed up, at least he looked a little bit classy.
Well, that's the thing. Like, what was it last night after the show that we did? I stuck around for a bit because the person I was with, Karen, wanted to introduce me to some friends, and they all showed up, and they all looked well. Let's just say, for an overly muscular blue anthropomorphic tiger, I was probably the most normal looking thing in the group. There was really nothing. Like, I had, jeans, shoes, boots, and a muscle shirt. And, everybody says, okay, we got pixie wings. We've got the anime look. We've got something like a really perverted version of Cupid over there. There was just all kinds of WTF. At which point, like I said, I looked around and went, Jesus Christ, I'm the most normal thing here. And I'm a cat. It was just, I don't know. I think I would never consider anything unimaginative unless you come in with the stock avatar.
Okay.
At that point, I right click, check your profile, and I see how new you are. And if you are more than a year old and still stuck with that, you've been away for a while.
Joey, go ahead and say whatever it is that you're going to say before I go ahead and play
I
on
was
this a second.
I was just gonna say, look, until you've had a conversation with a toaster.
Oh, don't get me started.
A toaster?
I've been there. The guy had a freaking avatar that was just a toaster.
I love it.
And the amount of tongue-in-cheek jokes that we let pass between the two of us,
I could just imagine.
Based on the toaster thing.
So were you grilling him about how long it took to build that avatar?
I don't know whether or not he built the avatar himself, but it was shiny.
Yeah,
I'm glad somebody got that one, by the way.
No, the worst one I saw was I went to a Halloween party at some place, and one person's avatar was a tornado of furniture.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. I walked in with my avatar. I took one like, yeah, screw it. I'm not entering the contest. Why? Because that's the winner.
Yeah. Okay.
Sounds like my apartment.
Yeah.
Hope not. Okay. So here's the point of it all. Yes, we're social, and yes, we have the 3.0 version of what pen pals are these days, where you don't have to wait, 2 weeks for a letter to get back with a little bit of stuff written down by hand. The point now is that with things like Second Life, with things like IRC, where you can type an entire description, or like I said, Second Life, where you can build whatever you want your avatar to appear as, or IMVU, which does almost the same damn thing, or it could be a PUBG for all I care. It could be anything. Any situation online. It doesn't ultimately matter what the presentation is. It doesn't matter what the visual representation is. We who have been online long enough, who have dealt with online chats, IRC, ICQ, typed, doesn't matter what it is, we have learned such an important piece about social skill. Completely ignore the description and listen to the content and the character of the person that you're speaking with. Yes, I have at least one Tribble avatar in my collection, one of which is a Bizarro Tribble, so it's a cube. Shut up. It was for a good cause. I've got one with a dankly sensor bar underneath it because it was fun to do that. It doesn't hide anything. It just makes people go, what? Because it's fun. And the most important part is actually speaking to and interacting with and learning from and bouncing ideas off of whoever these people are that you deal with on a consistent basis, and just enjoy their company. And that's really the piece that I was going to, finally get us steered over to. It didn't matter what the people on the other side of your pen pal exchange looked like. Yeah, you get a picture every once in a while if you're lucky, but you dealt with the person that you were interacting with, their personality. Like Dallin was saying, the one person that you had the interaction with where they sent over the posters, you got a pretty good indication of what kind of personality they had. Admittedly, it might have been a little off-putting, but years later, you could say that if they were young, their heart was in the right place, but really poorly executed.
Yeah, the phrase "all the subtlety of a brick to the face" comes to the mind.
That works. That works. I wouldn't have thought of that one in particular, but there it is. But
I'm using that one quite a bit.
It's fair enough. But I mean, that's what it all comes down to. Even stuff that is without interaction per se, like newspapers. We read up about what's going on. We're not exactly interacting with the paper or the person that's writing the article, but we get what they're trying to tell us, at least. And by that, we kind of learn a little bit more and feel out what somebody's opinion might be, especially if you're dealing with things like op-ed pieces and Dear Abby and Landers. Granted, they're dead now, but I mean, the originals. Don't get me started about Garfield. Just don't get me started about it. At least back in the day when comics were a thing, Newsday had something called Kids Day, where they had Beekman. So Cartoon Beekman was good before it was on TV. Shut up. I know what I'm talking about. Joseph, since you got here a little bit late, I'm assuming that you've kind of gotten a feel for where we're talking about with all this and human interaction and being social and such. Were there any kind of things that you had as far as to, as a youngster, like a pen pal or email exchanges or something like that?
No, actually. I'm pretty, well, I'm not antisocial, but let's just say I'm pretty solitary.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, even with I
can't even remember the last time I played a game, actually.
I guess that means that we need to do Cards Against Humanity again sometime soon. Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah,
Sounds
it's people like you who get me into doing things like that.
Good.
That's a positive thing.
I'll take it that way. But even with guys who are doing stuff with CB radio or ham radio, or no, I'll just use those examples. It's an opportunity of just putting your voice out there and hoping somebody is listening. I mean, that's why in ham radio there is an abbreviation that's been agreed upon, even in using Morse code. The letters C is in Charlie, Q is in Quebec, because if you say them together, it's seek you. I am seeking you. I'm seeking a contact. I'm putting my voice out there and hoping that somebody hears me, and hoping that you will call me back.
In French, Q means ass. So ICQ.
Before AOL,
Well, you know what they say, the internet is for porn.
Excellent messaging program.
I'm sorry, Tech. One more time.
I said before AOL bought it out and destroyed it, ICQ was an excellent instant messaging program.
I used it. It was like I could combine like every social media chat thing in existence, I think.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Yeah,
Now,
and that's
if we were going to talk about now, it's one thing to talk about communication and groups and things like that, but I think there's an interesting topic if we talk about the whole point of communication. Why do we do this?
well, like I said, the fact is that humans are social animals. Now,
Why?
I was about to say, now the reason of the why to that, I know full well is super complicated, and a good portion of that is kind of physiological. You don't want the gray matter to kind of atrophy, I guess is one. I don't know if I'm kind of taking creative liberty with the expression, or if it's more reality. So, okay, Mr. Wise Guy, what's the answer? Why?
It's different for everybody.
So that's great. So your answer is, you know what? Everybody's got their own answer. That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much. Make it so much easier on the rest of us. Explain.
No, but I mean, it's something to consider. It's something to talk about it because, like, your answer just shows that it's not something that you've thought a lot about, so you don't have a ready prepared answer, which kind of proves my point. I think if we had this understanding, it would make communication between ourselves a lot easier. But I don't want to take this down a too serious road, but I do see trend going on because, you know, you've got I tend to categorize humans between two levels: people who know how to survive for themselves and people who depend on others for survival. And between the two, the motive for communication is completely different, because for people who don't know who aren't responsible for their own survival, they have to imitate everybody else. So communication between people like this tends to be a confirmation fest. Oh, I'm the same as you. Oh, you're doing that. Okay, I'm doing the same as you. You're healthy. Okay, so everything's working. But people who know how to survive for themselves, people who think critically, they tend to communicate to exchange survival information, like, you know, like information useful for survival.
Well,
and it doesn't matter who's right or wrong about anything. It's really funny because survived by imitators, when they communicate, it's super important whether one person is right or one person knows better. But between critical thinkers, the communication tends to be like nobody cares if you're right or wrong, because the point of the communication is coming out of the conversation with the best information possible. And that's it.
Sometimes so. There is also the God. This is the cynic part of me. I hate this part. Okay. There are also those people who would be better at the survival game, but there is an aspect of that where not giving away the information, not sharing the information, is beneficial for them, or more beneficial, because then they would be the survivors where others might not be.
But that's a fucking great point, because yeah, that's how it works actually. Society, you've got a few critical thinkers taking advantage of a lot of non-critical thinkers, and that's exactly what's going on.
Wow. I thought he was actually going to start berating me. I was not expecting to suddenly be, yeah, you know what? That's a great point, man. Holy shit. All right.
Yeah, but who would do something like that? Who would use their position as an advantage over somebody else, like consciously?
Anybody who wanted to survive more than be helpful.
That's at somebody else's expense, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so
in other words, you don't need to run faster than the bear, just faster than your friend.
Remember, it's the survival of the good enough.
Yeah.
I know I know we hear survival of the fittest a lot, but it's actually survival of the good enough. Good enough to replicate your genes, and then nature doesn't really kind of care about you after that.
Yeah, I can give you a perfect example of who might be like that. We were picking up salads for going over to a friend's house, and we were having another festival of meat. Yes, that's what it's called. Officially, it's the Festival of Meat for big time barbecuing. A lot of you get the idea. Anyway, and one of the things that I looked at was the section in the health and beauty aisle that was specifically labeled alternative healing. The price tags on some of these little vials of whatever fluid they were was, in a single word, obscene.
Well, people are buying it, otherwise they would stop.
Yes, they are. But if your point is to survive better than someone else without giving them the information that you know, such as, I know full well that this sugar water will not have any appreciable effect on someone, but I will tell them that it cures all what ails them and take their money. They have less funds. I have more funds. And ultimately, it is a harm unto them because they no longer have correct information or the money for an obscene amount of money for a vial of water.
So basically, you're doing evil.
Yeah. It depending as to. Okay, I know that we're going to get into a whole big philosophical rigmarole about it, but as far as evil is concerned, doing detriment to some other person that doesn't need to be done for the sole use of bettering your own position or amassing more wealth through duplicity, that qualifies in my book as evil. That's a long way of saying don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Anything that's detrimental to society. But take that thought, like what you've basically done is snake oil salesman.
Yep.
Like what you just described is pretty well every libertarian. But tie that in with the fact that we're social creatures and that we have to live with other humans. Like, is that really compatible? Because I mean, the result is going to be that's a detriment. That sort of attitude is a detriment to society.
Okay, and
that you live in.
Yeah, Dallin, I'll get you in just a second here, but I want to go ahead and point out the fact that Joseph said, basically made a generalization about. I forget exactly what the terminology was. All libertarians, or that something to that effect. We are not painting a large brush on everybody in that particular frame.
I said typical.
Even so, I want to make sure that we understand we're not trying to paint a large brush on everybody. There is a reason why there is a stereotype out there. Don't be a bad stereotype for anything.
I didn't have to say libertarianism.
Well, I know, but I would have gone ahead and put that one out there anyway because going too far into any one piece, I don't want anybody to think that we're trying to stereotype anybody in particular and paint them in the wrong brush. And I'm just kind of rambling at this point. I'll shut up now. Dallin, go ahead.
Well, no, what Joseph said about snake oil salesman. Now, so where did that come from? You know, the charlatan, the art of the charlatan has been around since forever. You know, the fact that nowadays, you know, on TV, it's easier to get your message out these days. And even after you've been exposed for being the bald-faced, fake-ass piece of douchebaggery shit that you are, yes, Peter Popoff, I'm talking to you. They're still able to keep going because it's, you know, the media is almost like a drug. You know, yeah, you know, you can call these people out and you disappear for a few years. Like, oh, Uri Geller, the guy that James Randi exposed. He's still going though, isn't he? Still pulling the same shit after all these years. So what did Randy do? On a real roundabout thing, he did nothing. He caused a speed bump in the guy's career. He's still going. Because, well, like P.T. Barnum said, there's a sucker born every minute. And, you know, if you can hold out long enough so that people can forget, you know, and I mean the common person. I mean, people like us, we don't forget. People like, what was his name? Oh, he did a whole thing on Peter Popoff a long time ago. Christ, can't remember his name.
But you mean besides Randy?
Yeah. No, this was a guy on YouTube. He did a whole bunch of stuff about it. But like I'm going back as far as like Thunderfoot V, Venom Fang X. I'm talking that time period.
Oh, the fun days.
Yes, DPR Jones. That's who it was.
Okay.
He's been off YouTube for a while now. But yeah, he tore Popoff apart. You know, but you know, I go down to the States for a visit and I look on TV and who's selling the magic spirit water still? So, I mean,
what really bothers me about these people is that, you know, to his followers, Popov's followers, Randy, he's the bad person. He's a shouter. He's noisy. Yeah. He's like all sorts of adjectives. And, you know, that says something about the following. And I really think the following is not the source of the problem, but they're the reason the situation exists, a state of credulity. And I think this has no reason to exist in modern society.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we should really probably see about drilling down to kind of pull this all together at this point, because as much as being social creatures is a help to us in general, that we are less fearful of the people who are not exactly like us, that speak differently, that go to sleep in different places, have different skin tone, different hair, whatever. The idea that there are people who will utilize, who will pervert, who will manipulate that social cohesiveness, that social trust. I think that's probably the better way of putting it. The social trust for their own, dare I say, evil benefit. And again, I'm using the whole idea of what was said before, how there are these guys that will sell whatever, a timeshare in heaven, but you only get it after you've paid enough and after you die. And of course, you know, no takesy backsies on the money, because, you know.
I think there should be a distinction made, though, because like the end result is evil, but often the person making the sales pitch, they're not conscious of the end result. They may be just as much a believer as the following.
Okay,
and I think it's really important to make that distinction when you're targeting somebody.
Okay. Let's be clear about this. Knowingly stating false information with the intent of duping someone, of manipulating, of what's the best way of putting it? Of using your social standing in a group in order
But
to
it's a
take it,
survival. You have a survival advantage that others don't. You know how to make your own value judgments, and you're abusing that over other people who don't, who depend on you actually for making those decisions for them. It's taking advantage of their dependence on other humans for their survival. I'm sorry, I'm taking that down to a level maybe a little deeper than most people are used to talking to.
No,
but
that's
I mean, through my studies, like even into neuroscience, often I find that humans we tend to react and rationalize our reactions without really understanding why we reacted that way. And that's one of the main survival is one of the main motivators in almost everything we do. I mean, if it wasn't good for our own survival, we wouldn't do it. Even scratching our nose applies there.
Yeah, the problem that I've run into with this is, I mean, being social creatures over the millennia has led to amazing things culturally that have come out of it. I mean, at this point, we have cities that run on invisible power that allow communication over invisible lines of force. That it's magic, as the expression goes. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
For science, it was amazing. I mean, the progress you can get. Science is basically building on all your predecessors' backs. So with the communication aspect, yeah, you can find out what progress doctors on the other side of the world have been. Like, I mean, even working I've been working with biology doctors translating papers, and just to see how that goes on. Everybody's aware of every other country's progress in any given field.
Yep, there is that. Let me give you a great example of how this has got two sides that can work out well. And Bridget, I need you on this one.
Okay.
Let's go with this one. From the I've communicated a great idea that seems to work in the medical community. One name, Dr.
Jonas Salk.
Salk. Thank you. I couldn't say his name for the hell of it. He communicated, and it was an ultimate good. Agreed?
Yes.
Okay. Now, we go on to the idea of he took information that he had gained, that had been shared with him, that came along, and he was able to put stuff together from other pieces. Now, it's entirely possible other people work on similar stuff, but he got the job done, and he got the credit for it, and ultimately he put all the word out there of what he did and what he discovered and what he was able to manage, and it was an incalculable good for society.
Maybe some people don't know who Salk is.
Fine. Then we'll go ahead and we'll have her tell. Go ahead. You know the name and you don't even know what the hell he did, right?
Yes, I know. I'm sorry.
You don't have to whisper, too.
I don't have to whisper. Are you sure?
Yeah.
If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have the anti-vaxxers today. All right.
If it weren't for him, we would still have all these kids in this country having to sit in iron lungs and not being able to go about normal functions like walking and breathing and things like that.
Yeah, most kids are very, very high on that whole breathing thing. I don't get it personally, but yeah, whatever.
And iron lungs are very, very expensive.
Can't imagine why.
But I mean, because of him, we don't have problems with polio in this country. But I do suspect it may make a resurgence at some point due to anti-vaxxers, and some people in other countries are still afraid of the polio vaccine.
Yep.
So, yeah, that could be a problem later.
Okay, so using that, because I was going to go with that, the anti-vaxxers have used somebody else who took information, collected it, and put it out there. But there was a problem with all that information, wasn't there?
He was a fraud. And people started buying into these vaccines kill people because there's a conspiracy to put all this crap in there, and mind control, and trying to think what else.
Mercury.
Yeah, mercury.
Autism.
Theramasol, whatever that's pronounced.
Thimerosal.
Thimerosal.
Yay! I got one that you didn't.
Yay! It causes autism, and as far as my understanding, some of the anti-vaxxers have also made their way up to our friends up north in Canada.
Yeah.
And some people are refusing vaccines up there as well. And herd immunity is very, very important. We're losing that.
Well, and I have more of a stake in this than all of yous, because I don't have a spleen anymore. So yes, I have been vaccinated, and will have to be vaccinated on one particular one every 5 years for the rest of my life. But I am still going to be relying very hard on the herd, shall we say, to keep me from, from succumbing to some of the stuff that's out there. So for every anti-vaxxer who keeps their kids away from, those evil autism needles because, Dr. Wakefield says so, that debunked piece of human garbage, that means that people like me, our percentage of actually staying healthy goes down collectively. Now for people with bolstered immune systems, I mean, yeah, they're at risk too, make no mistake. It's just that, I'm part of the group of people now that I need your guys' help through your collective immunity to make sure that I don't end up in a bad situation. And, I guess this is the downside of, media and creating, so-called friends on Facebook and stuff like that, is that these wackaloons are able to get their word out there. And the worst part is that people believe them. I've read some things from these anti-vaxxers, and it's like, do you read what you've typed? Is this you? Are you honestly that damaged in the head that you actually believe the tripe you've just put out? And I'm talking, these people are Alex Jones level of they have an Alex Jones level of conviction in their words. It is incredible at how first, how aggressive they are in their assertions, but also just like, how do you live? How do you even exist day by day when you're able to put out stuff like that?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, Bridget, let me take that and put it to you in this context. We have the ability now of determining and detecting autism spectrum. I forget exactly what the right terminology is, but I think you know where I'm going on this.
Spectrum disorder.
Okay. And families, new parents, will go grabbing for any possible explanation because of the idea of personal guilt for a genetic dice roll that they had no way of doing anything about. And they're willing to grab onto pretty much anything that absolves them of any guilt. Is that not exactly what the anti-vax thing can just go ahead and do? Give absolution for these people for the genetic die roll that came up snake eyes.
Well, I think they're looking for a replacement of what used to be blamed for causing autism in the 70s before we knew about all the genetic contributions, and that was what they referred to as a frigid mother, somehow abusing the child and being withholding affection from the child, and that would cause autism. That's what they thought in the 70s. And so mothers pretty much got blamed for causing it. And so I think now they're turning towards the vaccine excuse when it's really nothing to do with the parents at all.
Are you sure about that? Do they know what autism is? Nobody knows what autism is or its causes.
Well, it's not from being abused, and it's not from vaccines.
Yeah. Well, there's no consensus on it. Is what I should say.
Depending on they have figured out the biological cause of autism with the genetic structures, DNA, things like that, and when it's occurring in development. Yeah, they've actually been able to figure out that it's not a drug that's causing autism. It's a change in genetics, or it's a twist in the DNA when everything is still forming that's causing the autism. That there's no possible way for the injections to cause this, because people aren't getting the babies aren't getting them at that stage because they're not even babies yet.
I hear things like this, but then I hear also commentaries. Like I was listening to, well, not to plug anybody, I was listening to a podcast, and there was this neuroscientist on, and she was talking about autism, and she says, well, if you want to see people on the autism spectrum, well, MIT's halls are filled with them.
Well, I'm talking about full onset autism, where there is some massive things going on, and they were showing that it's occurring way early in early development before the baby's.
My point being is that not only we don't know what causes it, we don't even know what it is. There's no single definition for it. Well, it seems to be an umbrella term for a lot of things.
Well, okay, let's hold on to that a second, because Bridget, I would assume that you're not exactly versed on autism diagnoses and what covers, what causes. I would assume, correct?
I'm not, but what I can say is it's on a spectrum. You have some people who have like Asperger's syndrome, which is now thought to be on that spectrum of autism. Those people can still function very well in society, but they may have problems with reading facial expressions or doing well in job interviews because they can't, quote unquote, read people. And then you have other people with autism that are profoundly disabled to the point where they can't function at all.
Okay, so it's safe to say that what autism is or isn't one that we can really give an explanation to, at least us here, being mostly lay people. But saying that we don't know what it is isn't entirely accurate. There are definitely shades about it that are very tricky and not well understood, but there are other parts of it that do seem to be typified, I guess is probably the best way that I can describe it. It can be categorized. Joseph, would that sound fair enough for you for right now? Knowing full well that we're not going to get into like a deep dive into that.
No, and I'm not looking for any definite. I'm not asking for any definite conclusion right now. I mean, I'm just making a point that it seems to be up in the air.
What I was reading didn't say, okay, so and so with such and such genetics, if they have such and such lineage, they're going to get autism. It wasn't anything like that. What it was is that they know that the autism, it's genetically the causes of it are genetically related. That, if you have a set of twins, right, genetic twins, and one has autism, there is a very high probability that the other twin will have autism too, much more so than fraternal twins would be.
If you want to make that even more complicated, you've also got gene expression, because you've got certain genes that can be present in the genome.
But the point is that
they aren't activated.
The main point of the whole paper is that these are things that are predetermined when everything is forming. This is not something that if so and so gives their child the vaccine for measles, their DNA is going to go and they're going to have autism. This is long before those vaccinations hit.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to get at is that anything that happens to cause that is, prenatal. It's not due to an external cause that happens to the child after it's born.
And see, the funny part is that there's going to be people out there, or at least I speculate that there's going to be people out there who are going to go, well, obviously the mother had vaccinations, so therefore the child had autism. Really, asshole? So how about the parents that didn't get vaccinated and still wound up with having children with autism? Huh? Go ahead, riddle me that, asshole.
Let's. We're getting pretty close into.
I'm sorry.
Nope.
I have a relative who is spectrum disorder, and whenever I hear some mother talk about vaccines, I just want to reach out and bitch slap.
No, I understand.
And if I miss, you come back with the alternate swing for the reverse bitch slap.
No, I get you. I get you. That really wasn't where I was planning on going down on this point, but I guess the piece that I really wanted to kind of tie this all together with is just real quickly that we want to be, in a word, normal. We all want to be just normal.
That's another rabbit hole.
Yeah, but what I mean by that is we want to be part of the larger. We want to be part of the social structure. We don't want to be we don't want to be left out. There are, of course, the pieces where people want to be the star of their own story, and I get that, but we at least don't want to be completely left out of societal grouping.
Yeah.
I just want to be understood.
Well, if you'd stop speaking that frog language, it would be so much easier on the rest of us.
Well, I understand him just fine.
You
must be an American thing.
What are you calling frog language?
Let it go.
It's because we're in France.
Je peux parfaitement parler en français si tu veux. Là, on aurait un problème de communication, ça c'est certain.
Okay, the fact that I caught about 3/4 of that scares me. I haven't looked at French in over 30 years.
You're Canadian.
I don't know. You have a hard enough time trying to speak Norwegian. Don't even give me crap about French too now, man.
Hey, okay, my inability to speak Norwegian was actually a couple of poor life choices when I was younger, because I had 2 tutors who were more than willing if I'd only shown an interest.
Yeah, well,
much to my personal detriment nowadays. I mean, hindsight's pretty 20/20 on that one.
Yeah, well, theoretically, you would think that at this point I should be able to speak English, a smattering of Spanish, which I can still kind of pick up every once in a while. Italian, I do still remember a little bit of Japanese, just a little
yeah.
Skoshi.
That was actually one thing I found very interesting. Going way off the rails here, but you mentioned Japanese, and Netflix recently has done a reboot of Voltron. I'm going somewhere with this.
Again?
Yeah, they actually did a pretty good job of it. They really fleshed out the story.
Okay.
But what I found interesting was that the Black Lion pilot in this iteration was a guy by the name of Shiro, which is Japanese for white.
Right.
Is anyone else choking on the irony here?
You know,
At
considering
least you know they have a sense of humor.
yes, and in Japanese culture, it does not at all surprise me that something like that would come to be. I mean, let's face it.
Shiromasen.
I mean, let's face it. On Speed Racer, the Mach 5. Yeah, Go Speed Racer.
Yeah.
Go is the number 5 in Japanese. Ichi ni san shi go.
Interesting.
I know. I shouldn't use she for 4. I know that's a bad luck thing. But
If I say to you 3939 very much,
I don't.
Domo domo? No.
thank you.
Oh.
Not happening.
Anyway,
We're obviously all tired at this point.
Yes, pretty much. And for what it's worth,
pretty fun, but the 3-9 in Japanese. Anyways,
I have a hard enough time getting past the number 5, and I can only do it by rote at this point. So that's all I get. I can't even do 5 to 0. So anytime there's a countdown for something, I'm screwed. I don't know.
And count above for anything above 20 in Japanese is kind of crazy.
As I understood it, that kind of gets the same way in the 60s, but in French. But that's a whole other thing for later.
And decimals. That's really fun.
Yeah, French counting is interesting. German counting is very interesting, as I recall. I can't get much past. I can't get much past 10 at this point. But
so we will not have you doing head count at Eurofrince anytime soon. Okay, good to know. That's good. Was there rest of the guys at this point? Was there anything that you guys wanted to finish dropping in at this point before we go ahead and close up shop? Because I think I pretty well said my piece. I don't know if anybody's got something else that they wanted to wrap with.
I'm good.
No, I got nothing.
I got a lovely bunch of coconuts.
You've got a little mute button over your head.
Oh no.
No, he does. It's right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll hold off
only thing that I have, and this is probably going to seem random, but something that I just ran across on the internet. Thank goodness, because I love the internet. One of our mayors in Indiana had used an app to meet his future husband a couple of years ago, and they had like long distance internet dates, drinking beer, FaceTime on webcam, and got married last month.
Congratulations!
Which I thought was way cool. And he's mayor of a very small town, about 100,000 people. And his problem was, okay, if I'm gay, how do I find someone to date near South Bend, Indiana that's okay and not looking just for a hookup before a long-term relationship? And Mayor Pete is way cool. You'll probably be hearing more about him, and he may end up being making a run for president in 2020.
Better hurry up before Joey and I decided to go ahead and do it.
Well, Mayor Pete would be really cool.
I was going to say, at this point, Shujin, I think the Democrats are looking for anybody, because I'll be perfectly honest, and I've said this before, I'm not seeing any stars right now on that side of the fence. I'm not seeing any showstoppers, nobody with any kind of charisma that I've seen yet.
There you go.
Okay.
Read that.
All right. I'll see about adding that to the show notes. But Dallin, as far as that all is concerned, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. I mean,
I've known Mayor Pete since like 2008. You would love him.
Well,
Very charismatic, good looking, very progressive. Yeah.
Piece at a time. Actually, there's one thing that I just suddenly remembered about really quickly. When I was still living on Long Island, working at the drugstore, there was a $10 bill that came past me that had somebody's name and address and an askance to write me. And I did. I actually wrote this young lady a couple of letters over the course of 2 years-ish. Turned out she passed away about a year and a half or so ago. And she still had those letters. Mom came up a couple of weeks back, got in touch with me on Facebook and said, "Are you the person?" And rattled off pieces of information. Yeah, it's a little creepy, but yeah, that's me. You would be surprised how people will end up getting contacts sometimes. You write your address on a bill. You can put it out there on the electronic forums. And before anybody goes ahead and says that technology is ruining these possibilities of making friends, how many times have you heard about people that found a note in a bottle thrown overboard? We've been doing it for a long time. The only thing that's changed is the medium, man. We're still putting out our word and trying to talk to people. So with that, I think that's pretty well everything that we've got to talk about for the time being. So, as always, thanks for being with us, everybody. Hope that you had yourself a good time listening to what we've got to talk about and found something worthwhile in all of our perspectives. All of you guys over there in the chat, I have been trying to keep track of what's been going on. There are a number of things that I'm trying to digest, mostly because I'm having a little bit of a hard time running through it all. But thank you guys for being with us. Stephanie, Trippin, Roxy, I know that you were there for a while. Katja, Felis, who had another piece of information about the FCC regs that said that skip condition is now apparently legal. I would have otherwise said, well, like I'm going to remember that. Well, apparently that was just last year. And I did not realize it because I didn't know about it. So I learned something tonight. Go me! I'm going with that. So I hope I didn't miss anybody. But if I did miss you over there in the live chat, I'm sorry. Just chime in and say, hey, me! So I will get to you because it's worth it. So let me say goodnight for everybody. Joseph, thank you very kindly, man. I'm glad you were able to make it, and I hope that the rest of your week goes well for you at this point.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm late. It's the last, as we say in French, ligne droite for my renovations. I just have the counter to deal with. Yeah, that's it.
No worries. Just take care of yourself, man, huh?
Yeah, you too.
Absolutely. Thank you. Unrenewed Tech. What can I say? If you guys can change the locks over there, that would be great.
See, the problem with changing the locks is that people like that tend to ignore the things like legal things like locks and the law, and they'll just plow through anyway, and pardon themselves later.
Fair enough. Speaking of locks, really quickly, did you see the Trump Dalek that's going around in London?
Yeah, that was hilarious. I love that. That and the blow up baby Trump that's having like a breakdown with the little cell phone in its hand and the diaper. Yeah. Oh God! And here's the really funny part about the blow up, the big balloon thing. When Trump was apparently approached about the balloon, he said he didn't care, or that's not his exact words, but basically how he's not bothered. Well, when he got there and they started flying the balloon, he publicly stated that he felt like they didn't want him there. Really? No shit. Wow. Something got through. Holy shit. We need to find all the people that got that together and like sit them down and make those people his counsel, because apparently they did something and said they were able to get through.
Yeah, and the reason for that
without
is
stroking his ego or his hair.
Yep. And I'm sure Stephanie will chime in on this because she's saying HuffPo had a glorious article showing the funniest signs. I'm sure that she will agree that English folks are the most glorious when it comes to putting people down that richly deserve it. So with that, Tech, thank you very much, man. I'm glad I was able to let you go out with a smile tonight. How's that? There you go. Joey, it's about that time, man. Almost time for you to go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Thanks for being able to be up, Win.
Well, you know, could always have the fun of a British drive-by. Oh, Reginald! I disagree.
At least it's not an Amish drive-by. Clop, 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 clop. Bang, bang, bang! Clop, 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 clop.
You completely missed the joke there.
No. And Joey, if I'm able to find a way of swinging it your way, I will have to find you a copy of Oh Sir. You know what I speak of.
I'm pretty sure that I do.
Thank you. Somebody do me a favor and put in our notes that I need to put "Oh sir" in there because I'm busy otherwise typing. But thanks, man. You have yourself a good morning.
I make no promises, but hey, I'm here.
I didn't ask whatever the hell. Bridget, thanks ever so much. I hope you had yourself a good morning.
Oh, I will. And I guess this is where I'm supposed to plug my blog, huh?
Well, you've got a choice. Either you do it or I do it. And do you know what DJ rule number 0 is?
Don't piss off the DJ, I think.
No.
No.
DJ is a dick.
Oh, DJ's dick. That's right. I keep forgetting that. Yes, you can find my blog at rigidfitch2112.wordpress.com, or you can send me a friend request on Facebook under Rigid Fitch.
Again. So, Dallin, it's about that time.
Yes, indeed. And of course, glad to be here as always.
And
yeah,
we, for what it's worth, I miss you.
Yeah. Maybe sometime I'll find my way back out there again. We'll see what happens.
Preferably when you're not working.
Yeah. Well, the dynamic has changed. My job has undergone a bit of a transition, if you will. New skills, new projects, new potential. Planning system is a whole lot different, where I actually might be able to see things a lot more in a long term, so that I can actually plan ahead a lot more without suddenly, oh yeah, get your ass on a plane. You're going here for the next 2 weeks. But I had, no, I know you had vacation, but too bad. Apparently that's going to be gone now. So
good.
Anyways, as for me, I'm of course the curator of the audio version of this show over at holycrapthevlogcast.com, which is surprisingly up to date for a change. Yes, my bandwidth suffered under that one.
I could well imagine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if I have any other consciousness streams that I don't talk about on here, you can always catch me over at inthewind.yo5.ca.
Thank you, man. And Stephanie is putting a thing over here. Not our cup of tea is the mildest put down that's been seen so far.
Yeah. Homeboy's not doing himself any favors with his methodologies right now in when he's going overseas.
Yeah. I may get some grief for this one, but Stephanie, Steph, hang on a second. Stephanie, by the way, just between you and me, I think it would have been much funnier if it had said "not our cup of pee." Just saying. just take that one under advisement for later.
That's reaching. That's really reaching.
Brits can definitely throw shade like no one else.
That's true.
Yes, they do have a way of. Well, you think about it. They've had the royalty there forever, and I would wager that. Well, I mean, that's where they sharpen their skills. I mean, they've got a lot of the sort of rabble-rouser types. They've got no time for the House of Windsor. I remember a band made a song about Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, before she married the guy. Was not very flattering. You know, so there's, like I said, there's basically a bunch of buildings in England that are basic meme fodder for these people.
Yep.
Yeah. So to them, it's just, oh, Trump's coming. Yeah. Hold my lager, basically. I respect them. They're quick of wit, but their beer sucks.
I will tell you this. There's one sign that I saw that I absolutely adored. And I'll do this one quick and we'll get the hell out of here. It said, all in all, you're just another prick with no wall.
I saw that.
And I am someone who has a real hard time with Pink Floyd. We've talked about that, but that's a whole other thing for later. And even I think, mwah, well done. Excellently well done. I'd love to know what Mr. Waters has to think about that one. Maybe we'll find out later. I am thinking of the right guy, right?
Yeah.
Is Waters good? One for me. Yay. So if you would like to be in touch with us, please, of course, as was mentioned, take a swing over to holycrapthevlogcast.com and you can subscribe to the audio generation. You got all of our social links over there. If you'd like to send a voicemail message, the phone number is 859-HCTV-554, 859-4288-554. And if you'd like to go ahead and donate to the show for whatever reason, patreon.com/HCTV, because I got lucky on that one, and that's just the way it's going to work out. You guys have yourselves a good week. We will be back next week, God willing, for Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Cash. And with any luck, I will have a notice before Friday night to let you know what's going to be going on, because I don't know yet what I'm going to do. I'm working on it. I'm really working on it. Most of all, it was good to have a visit with everybody. It's good to be back. You will take very good care of yourselves. We will be looking forward to seeing you again next week. Until that time, of course, as always, I wish you the peace I no longer have. I wish you the strength that I've learned. I wish you well. And of course, my lady, 13 plus years on, I am still in love. Matane Fujin, I love you. I miss you. Dream of me. As always, until the next time we get together, everyone, good night.